Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge and the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2022 John Deere Classic. This is my Before the Lock show, where I'm going to go over everything you need to know before locking in those final DFS lineups, or maybe even some final bet thoughts. First and foremost, thank you for stopping by, spending a little time with me. Give me about 30 minutes, we'll get through this, and we will cover ownership projections, weather, got some presser information. I even got a couple custom models that I want to share with you that I looked at. Yeah, so with that said, let's go talk a little golf. Okay, so from a presser side, the only one that's out there really for the John Deere right now that's worth anything is the Nick Hardy one. And so I wanted to just touch a little bit on this and we'll move on. But of course, I mentioned in my show yesterday, of course, I'm picking Nick Hardy. He's had some really nice rounds. He is a local, went to Illinois, University of Fighting Illini, had 2 amateur invites here previously back in 2017 and 18. I'll show you that. And I think the biggest thing that I took out of this was that he had a wrist injury that maybe caused some of the issues. So if we go look at his PGA starts, I'd kind of look back here where the West Coast kind of struggled. He had a lot of success on the Corn Ferry. And then he kind of stalled right here. You can see, and he was talking in his presser that, you know, he felt kind of behind the 8 ball and there was a bit of stress on him because he didn't play so well on the West Coast. But you can see the wrist is good, and he's had, you know, this progressing nice run here at the RBC Canadian, which would be a good comparable course. He had a 14th at the U.S. Open. Probably that's where a lot of people's eyes got caught. And then here recently last week in the Travelers, where he gained with the putter, which is pretty unique. You can see, you know, a little positive with the irons and good off the tees, got some distance. And then up here on top is the 2 John Deere starts he had, like I said, as a senior at Illinois in the Big Ten. And, you know, again, the putter looks like it's the issue with him. But overall, you know, so he has comfort. He's local. You never know how that's going to play out. Sometimes the local thing doesn't go how we think. But all I wanted to state was I like the way he's trending. Typically when I see something like this, it could even mean a win is coming. But we need a little more data on Nick Hardy before we make that call. And that's it. That's all I wanted to share from a presser side. Okay, real quick, I'm going to go into weather a little more deeper. We'll go jump over into Wind Finder. But this was what came out this morning from the PGA Tour. And I always like to show you this real quickly. If you see, there is going to be some wind. There could be a bit of an AM, PM kind of flight thing. So you're going to have gusts up to 25 and 12 to 16 come out of the southwest tomorrow. So it might lead you to make some of your builds starting on the morning, because then you've also got possible thunderstorms coming in the morning on Friday. Now, if there's lightning, of course, they will delay play, and then you never know how it's going to shift out. Hopefully, it doesn't affect, you know, if you play Showdown, if you play Classic, it doesn't matter if you only play the 4-day event. But if you play Showdown, it's a bit annoying when you put some teams in and then they, you know, it gets delayed and you don't get final results and you got to wait till Saturday and so on and so forth to, you know, if you win some money to get that. So that's all I would say. I will kind of look to maybe building a couple teams that will be going off in the morning because of the wind. That will be definitely picking up as always in the afternoon. Of course, it's the Midwest. And then also, you know, maybe from a draw standpoint, maybe the guys that have to go out in the mornings who have the afternoon here might have to deal with rain. As long as there's no electricity nearby, they'll keep playing. And the guys in the afternoon that go out, you know, the course will be wet. There'll be no rain to deal with. So there could be some things there. So something we have to keep an eye on. And I'll show you through Wind Finder who we want to, the area that you want to pull up and keep an eye on. All right, so the one thing, of course, this is going to be a bit of a scoring fest, even though the field's weaker, but these guys should go out and make plenty of birdies, probably also have some bogeys. And what I'm showing you here is actually the model that I use for Showdown, so you're getting to see that. I don't know if I've showed this before, but when I do Showdown, one thing that I do look at, and this is the 4 categories that I'm usually most concerned with. I weight birdies at 50%, eagles at 10%, bogey avoidance, right? Because we don't want that the points taken away. I think it's 1.8 if you're playing Showdown that gets taken away for every bogey. That does add up. I weighted at 25%, and then birdie or better opportunities gain. So that means that you know, have opportunities to make birdies. Doesn't mean you convert them. That's where this birdie area comes in here. I got that at 15%. And so what I'm going to show you here is over the last 36 rounds, which would be 9 tournaments, 24 rounds would be 6 tournaments, and then the last 3 tournaments, which would be 12 rounds. You can just see the guys that show up. We need guys to score points, right? I mean, that's how it all works. And sometimes, if you look like what Cam Davis did last week, even though he fell back on the weekend, he still was in the winning lineup and scored a bunch of points. So guys like that can be very effective, especially in a field like this. And so number one, if you look at the last 9 tournaments, these are the guys. Hadwin, you got Nate Lashley, Day, Colin Taryn, you got Lanto, Poston, Goderup, Ramey, McNeely, McCarthy, Hubbard, Stricker, who is not in the field. He did withdraw. You got Charles Howell, CH3, CT Pan, and Scotty Brown, who does actually pretty well at this track, even though his recent form is trash. And then if I look over just the past 24 rounds, if you want more recent, you got Lanto, Poston, Cam Davis, I just mentioned, Nate Lashley, Taylor Pendrith. I'm kind of back and forth on him. He actually did play at the Players and had a good showing and was playing really good golf. But again, we haven't seen him for so long, and typically there's definitely rust that needs to be kicked off. So we'll have to kind of figure that one out. But could be kind of a sneaky DK, DraftKings play, especially if you're in the 7,300 range. You got the Todd Father, John question marks, John Hadwin, Goderup, Brown, McNeely, McCarthy, Rogers, Nick Hardy that we just talked about in the presser, and then Colin Taryn at the bottom. So a lot of the similar names. And then if you want to look over just sort of the last 3 tournaments, so the most recent form that we really want to look at, Cam Davis, John Webb, you got Nick Hardy, Svensson, Scotty Brown, Reevy, Rogers, Griffin, Hadwin, Thigala, Todd, Poston, Jonas Blix, who has, funny enough, been showing up a little bit lately, and then Taylor Pendrith again. That's older data. That's, back to the Players. So just side note on that. So I don't know, out of some stuff, when I show you certain things, I might build a lineup or 2 using this kind of information. Just, don't worry about exactly. I mean, if they're, scoring well, they're going to make the cut. They might just not finish as high as we want, but I think we definitely could build some teams all about who's the guys that makes the birdies. Okay, let's move along. The one thing I forgot to show you guys on the preview show, I always typically do, and someone remind me, is the irons. And the approach is always very key, especially in this event. And so I call this the Iron Man, who's the best on approach. And it's looking at the past 24 rounds, no filters on. And you can see all the different proximities. But this is what we really want to focus on, is the top 15 guys across all this. Approach is weighted at 40%, and then you got 10% on all these different proximities. So overall, who's the best at all different ranges and on approach? Scott Stallings, who's been just crushing it. You got Vaughn Taylor, who actually I talked about on the preview show that I bet. And I'm going to talk a little bit about him from a cheapie play. Boo Weekly, don't take that into effect. Now, I'm not saying Boo Weekly can't come out and do something, but the data that this is pulling is back to 2019. So I would scratch that one. You got Nick Taylor, Cam Davis, Ryan Moore, who's I mentioned the last 5 years have led in stroke gain, total strokes gained at this track. You got Lee Hodges, Seifert, Duncan, Glover, Robert Garrigus, Lipsky, Kuchowski, Simpson. So that's your guys that have been doing very well with the irons. And then, of course, we've got this 125 to 150 where over 20% of the shots come in from at this course. And I was a little shocked to see this, but number 1 was Harry Higgs, again, over the past 6 tournaments. You got Max McGreevy, Novak, Sabatini, Stewart, Glover, Stalling, Stricker, who's not in the field, Matthias Schwab. You got Hubbard, the Doc Redman, Cameron Champ, David Hearn, the Canadian. You got Duffner and Dylan Fratelli, who's a past champion here. Those are the guys that are leading at this 125 category if you're interested. Okay, let's go jump over to Fantasy National. Let's do a little analysis on the guys. Actually, I'm going to be looking at 7,300 and below. Going to give you my top 5 cheapies, and but also give you a look at a few other guys to see, if for some odd reason you are getting into this level of pricing, these are the guys that I think you should probably take a look at. Okay, I've jumped over to Fantasy National, and always I highly recommend, if you are putting any kind of money down on the golf fantasy or betting, it's a great tool. You can do a ton of analysis, and I'm going to leave it at that. Of course, as always, we are going to be referencing DraftKings pricing for these picks. And also, as always, I've got no filters on. Now, I'll give you a little input that I did already leverage those comp courses that I discussed on the preview show and the pick show to kind of also just see where these guys line up on comparable courses, not just TPC Deere Run. So it kind of just confirmed the guys that I was already looking at. Same mini model that we're looking at. So I call it kind of the KISS model, to keep it stupid. The 5 stroking categories I think are most important. And as always, you got salary, projected ownership, which we'll go into a little bit further. You got cuts made. I actually increased the birdies because that's pretty important for here. I wanted to see over the last 24 rounds, which would be also the last 6 tournaments. And of course, we'd like to see these in green if possible, but dealing with the guys that we have down here is not a shocker. And over to the right, you got recent results, past 5 tournaments they played in. How have they done from a finishing? And of course, tournament history. We'll look at that for all these guys. I've got about 13 identified at the 7,300 and below that I was interested in. I'm going to give you my top 5, and then of course I'll summarize that when we jump out of here. But in short, what I kind of stated in my pick show is that I'm not going to be probably rostering many of these guys. I don't think there's a need to. There's not enough strength of field to need to put, multiple 10,000 guys. Now, you're going to hear other, analysts and guys out there that do this that say, oh, well, you could be unique and you could stack a Thigala and a Hadwin and a Webb Simpson. You could do that. I don't know if I'd recommend it because I don't think those guys carry enough weight that, I don't even feel comfortable that they could win the tournament. That's my own preference. So, but if I do get a little nutty at the top, which I highly doubt I will, but if I did, these are the guys that I would play. So all I'm telling you up front is I don't think there's a need to go really below 7,000 this week. I think you've got enough guys in the upper 7s, the 8s, and the 9s that I think are just as equal, if not maybe better plays than the guys at the 10,000 range. But that's what I see. So the first guy that I came to that I had some interest in was Tyler Duncan. You can see from a modeling perspective, everything is really solid, tee to green. Not doing exactly what I want, par 5 and the proximity, but still enough there to get my interest. Also, he's not making the birdies. Typically, he can be. He's a one-round kind of guy. I've seen him come out first round and just light it on fire and then just fall apart. But he also has, out of the 5 tournaments he's played in recently, and I think some are really good comparables, like the Schwab. You could call TPC Craig Ranch, the AT&T Byron Nelson. That is a pure shootout. He missed a cut at Wells Fargo, which is also a good comparable. Also, the RBC Canadian at St. George, I think, is a good comparable. I think all these you could make an argument, and of course, the Travelers. But making 3 out of 5 with a T15 is pretty good. And also, what I liked is he has played here 3 times, and these fields are typically pretty weak at the John Deere. He had a T12 in 2018, a T26, of course, in 2020. They had no event, but he did miss the cut last year. So I have no issues, and think Tyler Duncan, give him a positive shout out if you're down here. But if I had to pick between the two, I'll go with my guy Hammer and Hank Laboda. You can see a little more well-rounded that he's doing. Also, it shows up very heavily that the guys who can score on the par 5s here typically end up winning this tournament. But again, his birdies are not where we like to see them. And but he's actually made 4 out of the last 5 cuts and had a T, well, I guess it'd be the 28th would be his best showing out of the last. And also had a really nice showing here last year. He had a T8, missed a cut in 2019. I've stated this 1,000 times. This is where he had his run last year and had a chance to get a win and just did not happen. Let's go click on Hammer and Hank real quick. The guys that I'm picking, I'll give you a little more information. So, not the longest off the tee, but pretty accurate, over 60%. He does gain on bent, can handle the wind. And if we look at, you can look at here, last 5 tournaments, then everything's been pretty good except off the tee. He is a lefty. Not saying that's why he causes issues, but just saying off the tee is where he typically does not game. But the irons have been pretty solid over the last 6 tournaments, gaining, I don't know, on average, a couple strokes out of 4 of them. Good around the green, and then the putter went nutto in Mexico, which is past Palm, but really struggled, funny enough, with the irons off the tee, which, we see that when you have that crazy spike up there to make a cut, have a 29th, you had to do something very well. I'll click on Hank. Let's see where he's had some of his best finishes. So the Bermuda, which I wouldn't think there's a ton of correlation. I mean, they can go low there, but the Rocket Mortgage, bent greens, is tree lined. Well, you can't get in too much trouble if you don't drive it, straight there. You just are hitting from a different fairway. The Travelers a year ago, the John Deere, one of his better finishes. You had Valspar, tough track. The Canadian Open back, I believe that was at Glen Abbey. Nope, at Hamilton. I take that back. The Houston Open, that would be at Memorial Park. For some reason, I had Harding Park stuck in my brain. But that's Bermuda. So anyways, I mean, like I said, I like Hammer and Hank probably a little bit more than I would Tyler Duncan. The guy that actually, that I've told you guys this story before. If you listen to me, I got to watch Nate Lashley live when he had his win at the Rocket Mortgage, right? I think he Monday qualified or or it was like the last alternate in. I always forget which. And of course, Doc Redman was right there with him. That was back, 2019. And you can see everything is firing from a modeling perspective. Again, over the last 6 tournaments, he is making quite a few birdies over the last 24 rounds. Also, probably making quite a few bogeys because the finishes have not been there. The Byron Nelson went well at T17 and Travelers. He had a good showing. But he did play here in 2019. He had a T26. And we can go click on Nate real quick just so you can see. Pretty similar to what we just saw at Hank. Hits at about 295, not super long, but pretty accurate. Been funny enough over his last 12 months is not a good service, but you can see pretty decent putter overall. Irons where I always thought he really strived. And you can see the putter has been a positive, the iron. So that's some key things you want here. And we can see the driver has actually been working. The irons have been kind of an issue, at least at the Memorial and the Schwab. And the putter has been positive. Gained a ton of past Palm at Mexico, but 4 out of the 5 last. So I like a lot that he's doing. And of course, I mentioned his win at the Rocket Mortgage. He also had a good showing at the Pebble Beach a couple of years ago. The Greenbrier, that's a while ago, but it's also a pretty good comparable course. And then again, Waste Management, which I don't think is bad because that's a bit of a putting contest. All right, Ryan Moore, even though the birdies are terrible, not too bad a form from a modeling perspective, doing a lot of things that we're looking for. And the big thing, if you mentioned, he's just got a crazy history here. I actually put him in my one and done option, and I'll go over that again before we get out of here. But yeah, he, if you look at the last 5 years, he's gained the most strokes out of anyone. Even though he doesn't have a win here recently at 2016 he won, but he had a T2 here last year, a T18. Something about this course he loves. And we'll click on Ryan Moore real quick. I mean, I look at him as kind of a plotter. So, not very long, but very, very accurate. One of the more accurate out there on tour. Positive on all putting surfaces. Nothing great on bent, but he is positive. Not too bad in the wind. And if we take a look at the putter, has actually been the issue lately. Approach has been pretty good off the tee. He's got to hit every fairway to even probably break neutral because of how short he is. And we see where he's had his best finishes. You can really kind of start to see John Deere is going to poke up a few times here. Let's just click just so you can see real quick if you didn't get to watch yesterday. So this will show you real quick. A first, a second, and this isn't in order. Let's do this in order. It was on position. So he had a second, an 18, a 55th, a miscut, a first, a win, a 24th, a 7th, a 20. I mean, the guy is just whatever it is here, man. He likes his track. So I mentioned the Brian Gay kind of scenario yesterday about Bermuda. There is a horses for courses, and you can see ownership's up there a little bit because of that. Scott Piercy, I put him in there. This guy in a weaker field will show up. You can see he does make birdies. He's not a bad showdown play. He's also got not a terrible course history here. I mean, here he was a little bit of a better golfer than he has been playing for a while. But even from a modeling perspective, not too bad. Let's just go take a little quick look at Mr. Piercy. So he's got some wins in the past. Canadian Open, the Barbasol. Trying to think of his best finish recently. It's been a while. I guess it'd be the Wells Fargo or the RBC. He popped up there. And then let's just go look at real quick at what he's been doing. So a bit of a struggle at the Travelers, but had a good showing again at the RBC, even though it's a total different course. The putter, you can see, is typically the issue. And I mentioned the RBC. Most recently is his best finish, where he fired pretty good at everything except approach, but gained 5 strokes with the putter. So you could do worse. I don't mind Scott Piercy, Sam Ryder. Kind of the same thing. I like him for a showdown play. This guy I mentioned multiple times. Can get on some crazy birdie streaks and, of course, throw in a bunch of bogeys with it. Not the greatest form, but he did have a T35 at the Travelers, but a pretty good history here, a T2, a T18, a T58. And we'll just real quick go see Sam Ryder. So the accuracy off the tee, it could be an issue. He doesn't drive it as long as many guys, but you can see bent is barely positive. Funny enough, crazy windy conditions, he's done okay. We can see the irons. He has gained the last 5 events, gained with the irons. A little sporadic off the tee, and the putter is typically what hampers him. He's thrown a bunch of string of miscuts. All I keep thinking about is at the Phoenix Open, the Waste Management, where he had the hole-in-one, and he ended up having a 23rd there. He had a 9th at Honda, so he had a nice little streak here, and then he kind of went on a cold streak. But again, No issues with him. Ryan Armour, this should be a perfect course. Now, funny enough, if you look at his tournament history, it does not say that, but what Ryan Armour does, it doesn't make sense. He had a nice showing at the Travelers. He's been kind of trending, even though the birdies aren't showing that, but the ball striking, everything you see there, he actually ranks fourth in the whole field with that simplified model. Again, if you're building a lineup with guys that just hit fairways, good with irons, the kind of the plotters, he would be in that lineup. He's very accurate, but does not hit it very far. Bent is barely positive. Struggles in heavy winds. You can see the putter's kind of been on and off. And same with the irons. I mean, the whole game has been kind of sporadic. I mean, the Byron Nelson would have been one of the better ball striking, but he lost so much with the putter. And then you kind of flip it around here where he gained, a little everywhere except off the tee. So let's go look at it. So funny enough, his win is at Sanderson Farms. Good showing at the Rocket. Let's see here. 3M, the Travelers, he had a 6. So yeah, I think it's a good match. I see no reason that you wouldn't, could sprinkle some Ryan Armour in. I kind of like Chad Ramey, and a lot of it's going back to this birdie percentage. And you can see it's very volatile, right? So he's from a ball striking pretty good, not doing the other things so well that I like, but a T21, a T27, he had a WD at the Memorial. I have no clue why. I'm guessing he was, typically when you see a WD, it's, either, of course, there could be a slight injury or he's so far out of it that he just decides to yank. Never played here before, but he's got that top 25 on the Corn Ferry kind of upside. Of course, again, not super long, but pretty accurate. Barely, I will just call it neutral on bent. Funny enough, the little bit of history we do have, he does play okay in heavy winds, which could be a factor. Typically, the irons are strong, which that's a key thing here, but the putter and off the tee is not the greatest. His best showing, I'd say, from a stroke gain analysis was at the Wells Fargo not too long ago. And then at the Colonial, Charles Schwab, the irons were off, but everything else was pretty good. Of course, he had his win. I totally forgot that he was a winner back in, we'll call it springtime at Corrales, where, you don't get to see what he did, but I got to watch some of that tournament, and he gained a ton with the putter. So there you go. That would be, I believe that's past Palm. Yep. The ocean courses. Okay. Scotty Brown, purely bringing him up from same thing. He's had a ridiculous back to that plotter crew. Really, really good course history. He's actually, funny enough, making birdies, but he's also got to be stringing a ton of bogeys and double bogeys. The ball striking, everything from a stroke gain analysis is trash, and recent form is pretty much trash. Well, it's not brutal. I mean, it's kind of like every other. He's making a cut or missing a cut. But his best, last tournament again was at the John Deere. So I've always said, and again, back to the Brian Gay story, you get a guy on a course that he just loves and has performed well, watch out. So I'm on that. Kevin Chappell, I actually need to look at from a betting perspective. I want to bet him, and I just keep forgetting. But this guy, he can just go super nuclear hot with the irons. I mean, he hits it so close at times that, he just has a bunch of tap-ins. You can see, the ball striking is pretty weak, but funny enough, he scores on the par fives. He's good from the 125, so that gets me interested. He's had a T15 at Corrales, a T18, a T62 with a couple of miscuts in the U.S. Open. I wouldn't worry too much about that, but Puerto Rico makes not a whole ton of sense. And then he has had some success here. Now, this was pre-back injury. If you don't know, Kevin Chappell had a really bad, just threw his back out. I think he blew one of his vertebrae, I think, on the driving range, if I remember correctly. So he's been, kind of struggling to get back to form, and he can't swing like he used to. But funny enough, like I said, I mean, he can get pretty hot at times with the iron. So I probably looked at him to plug in as a bet again. I don't know how much I'll be down here, but I think it could be a pretty interesting play. Sabatini on kind of that same thing. I mean, you can see from a modeling perspective, not a bad fit, does make birdies. Remember, he's our silver medal winner from the Olympics when shot, it was like a 61 on Sunday to move way up the board. He will do that. He'll have that crazy one round. And you can see, kind of a mixed bag, a withdrawal, and that's probably the worst thing about playing Rory, not too far off from a Louis Oosthuizen, where, he does have back issues. And at any point, that guy can just WD in a heartbeat. If his things aren't going well, watch out. So you got that volatility there. I don't know if they show up. I thought maybe I look at a specific tournament. I don't know. But I feel like that guy's withdrawn quite a bit. There was one not too long ago that he WD, but I don't see it on here because I think what it does, it doesn't bring the results in. Let's take a look at where he's had some. So he's won the Honda so long ago, and Nissan Open, the Memorial. What's Shriners? So there you go. I mean, if you want to kind of look at something, the Rocket Mortgage and Shriners is a pure putting contest. And funny enough, he did it with everything. He was barely neutral or a little over neutral. So I don't know. I don't mind Rory for this. I like Vaughn Taylor. If you know Vaughn Taylor, watch his swing. Just a real nice, steady. And I think so when I hit, I gotta think about this. I did hit him here in 2019 for a top 10. I think I actually bet him top 20, top 40. I hit him on a bunch, and it was really nice that he actually went all the way up to a T6. But this guy is just smooth, silky. If the putter gets going, man, watch out. You see very accurate, not very long, but, very accurate. If you look at like a Steve Stricker or Zach Johnson, who've won here multiple times, he kind of fits that mold. Last best shown was Puerto Rico. He had a 7th, a couple missed cuts, but he has also had 3 made. Let's take a look at where he's done his damage. So there's Pebble Beach. Makes sense. Mayakoba. Way back at Arnie's place at Bay Hill. Travelers. That's a little more recent. You got Valspar. Puerto Rico John Deere. The Amex. So yeah, if he's going to contend, it's going to be on these shorter tracks. So I told you I already bet him. And I like him as a play if you're going to be down at 6,800. And the last guy that just been kind of making a little bit of noise, 6,200, is Robert Garrigus. You can see, again, just from a birdie perspective, made three out of 5 recently. Kind of a mess here. A couple 20ths and then a 30th with a miscut and a DQ, which that's always interesting when a guy signs the card wrong or whatever happens that you actually DQ. But yeah, I think that's enough. It gives you some ideas. If for some odd reason you want to get unique, and I think it will be unique if you put, 3 of the 10,000 guys together. If you build kind of a lineup that's really heavy up top and you need to come down here, these are the guys that I would probably look to plug in. All right, let's go look at ownership projections, weather, and then I'll get you guys out of here. All right, so real quick, looking over at ownership projections. It's kind of funny. I updated this because when I looked at it yesterday, literally there was 2,000 lineups generated, which is such a low data sample that it would be kind of hard to understand. But now that it says we have 6,300 lineups generated, that we have a pretty good sample size to be able to feel pretty comfortable about where ownership will fall when it comes to, it doesn't matter. DraftKings, probably FanDuel, all of them. But way heavy is Webb Simpson, which, I did pick him. But I think I've so far built maybe like 12 lineups in the big game, the 200K winner. I think I've got him in one team. So, I'm kind of staying away. I mentioned this from the guys up top and kind of trying to build a little more, I don't know, like I said, balance, I guess is the best way to put it. But anyways, no shocker, your 2 most expensive guys. Funny enough, right now is showing the top 4 10,000 guys because I think it's kind of hard, right? I think people are not comfortable leaving $1,000 on the table. You always are trying to figure out how can I get the best 6 guys in and leverage the money that I have to do so. But this is a tournament where, we'll see how it all pans out, but it is not going to shock me, just like the Travelers. I used to do this. I used to show the top like 10 guys, and I probably should go back to it because it was always very interesting how many guys would finish in the top 10 out of the 6,000 range or the low 7s in these tournaments, these kind of tournaments. Pretty rare that's going to happen in, the very difficult or the very, like a Wells Fargo or the Riviera, the Genesis, or of course a major or whatever. So, but anyways, off a little tangent. Jason Day, oh, wait a minute here. Let me do this. Okay, that's a little better. All right. That's why I didn't come out the way I was seeing it. Okay, so the 2 10,000 guys are is Simpson and Hadwin. So that makes total sense. For a second there was thinking that it was all the top 4. Next guy in, Nick Harding. You got the local that we talked about from the presser. John Hunt been playing really good golf. CH3, 20%. That's kind of interesting. You can see the stars are my picks. So again, a little bit of chalk up there. Got Stallings, Patrick Rogers, Cam Davis. You got Svensson, who I'm kind of, I kind of built a even for you guys, gave you my all ball striker kind of top five guys yesterday. You got Adam Long, McCarthy. It's funny, Todd is a curious one because he's had a terrible run here, except for last year. He had to get like an 18th. But other than that, I told you when I pull up the last 5 years, he's had the worst stroke gain data out of anybody in this field. You got the Shank, who, I hope that works out. I've got a nice bet on him. It would be great to see him get a win. You got McNeely, who's not been in good form, but smaller courses tend to work. And, we're waiting for that talent to kind of shine through again. You got the Postman, great showing last. You got Reevy, one of my picks, Sahith, Seabass, Hubbard, Griffin. This Goddard up is so funny how much everybody's expecting. I don't know. I will not be the guy that's going to be playing him. Maybe it will come to fruition, but I don't see enough there for me to be too excited. I know you want to get in early, but I'm not that impressed. I mean, let's go take a quick look. I feel like he's just a guy that just bangs it off the tee. You don't need that here. I think his one key asset, which is hilarious, that over what we got. How many tournaments has this guy even played? He's got such a small data sample, but yeah, he's either lost 5 strokes, so that makes me nervous. So I think that's a great comparable to some degree. I mean, the rough is not going to be as penal as far as I know here, but that it was at St. George's. But distance is not what you need here. You don't, and it's shown time and time again. So we'll see how that all plays out. I will be fading Mr. Gotterup. I'd rather go to a Party Marty, like Austin Smotherman. Yeah, Lucas, who, I don't know, that could be interesting because I just feel like his form has just been trending so down. But go back to a place you like. You never know. There's my Nate Lashley, which I did not star him, but need to do that. You got Lipsky was a bet of mine. You got Ryan Moore, who is a pick. Tyler Pendrith, I don't know. I guess if you want to put a bomber lineup together, you could throw a Goddard up, a Pendrith. You never know. It's not a bad idea. You can throw Cameron Champ. I'm actually kind of almost like a FOMO. I don't know why. I'm just terrified that he could go out and win this. He's just due for his one win a year, even though nothing from a stroke gain analysis says he should. Let's go look at Champy again one more time. Yeah, I mean, he's just been horrific with the putter, but he will just go off. And you can see 4 missed cuts in a row. Let's go take a look at this because I think I remember. Yeah, so if you look at the 3M Open he won last year, he did show up at the John Deere, had 11th, actually gained 3 strokes. And he had 4 missed cuts before that. Let's go look at. I think this little trend has happened before. The Fortinet, kind of smattering. He made a few cuts, but then had 3 misses before the John Deere was a miss. I mean, he's a tough one to peg down. Sanderson Farms when his first win. Look at all the missed cuts, and then boom. So I might just have to place a bet. Hopefully, I have to take a look at his odds again. I felt like the odds just weren't enough for me. We'll see. Okay, moving along. Griot's a pick of mine. He's at 5%. There's Vaughn Taylor at 5. Is there anybody way down here? Steve Stricker's out of the field, so don't worry about that. There's Chad Ramey. He's 2%. Joseph Bramlett was actually interesting. So again, if you're going to build that bomber lineup, and why I say he was interesting, I was looking at him from a cheapie play. Let's go take a look at this. So he had a really good ball striking. He lost 8 strokes putting, which that is really hard to do. And I mean, this guy's a terrible putter. But if you look at where he's had some of his better finishes, the Greenbrier, is a short course. Weak field, the Sony Open. It just doesn't make sense. Like some of his better AT&T, where he's had some decent finishes, have actually been short courses, a little bit weaker field. So I don't know. Like I said, if I put all bomber lineup, he'll be in there. Peter Malnati. Nobody's talking about the Malnati. Let's go take a look at him real fast. Really good putter. The irons have been trash. But he really showed up at the Byron. Let's take a look here. Of course, win there. Shriners is a putting contest. The Byron Nelson. AT&T. Sony. What's he done at the John Deere? I guess I didn't even give him consideration. It's been a while since let's do it this way. Nothing great. Typically, doing what he does, but trash with the irons. Huh. I don't know. That's an interesting one. Okay, I think that's enough. All the rest of these guys. Brent Snedeker, I will mention. I almost put him in. I don't mind him. He had a T2 here. I think it was like 2010, 2009. Because if we pull up John Deere for him, because Fantasy National does not go back, I think, past 2013 on their statistics or data. It's not going to show up, but he has had a good finish here. It was a long time ago. But I mean, you're getting a proven winner. I know his game has not been the greatest. He did show up at the Valero. I like the Amex. He kind of popped up, some miscuts. I don't know. Just was kind of interesting. For him, the putter's got to work. And you can see it the Travelers. It did not. Funny enough, from a ball striking perspective, it was pretty good. And I don't think, I think he's always been known as one of the better putters. Now it's been kind of very off and on lately. But yeah, I don't know. Could be kind of an interesting play down here. Very low ownership expected. Okay, I think that's it. All the rest of the guys are super low, and I don't, there's nobody I could just say, hey, you got to play this guy. All right, let's go talk weather real quick. All right, so you're going to want to pull up Kelowna, I guess that's how you say it, is the closest location to the Silvis where the course is located. And of course, Wind Finder, as always, I tell you, it is free. Play it. And first, we'll look at the super forecast, which goes hour by hour. We don't need to worry about Wednesday, but if you're curious, it's dry there today, so getting a lot of good practice in. And then this is when I believe it's like a cold front that's coming in. I'm in Michigan, so we dealt with some rain yesterday, and it's been a little cooler. We've had for us, either very hot or it's been very cold. It feels like this is going to happen again. But I kind of mentioned, so always the morning is a little better. You're going to have the saying here 23 to 17. So it's going to get a bit windy. So if you're looking for any little bit of advantage, I am going to try to build some teams in the morning. And then Friday, I mentioned, the rain could possibly come in. I was saying here, funny enough, that it could sprout up in the morning. I don't see any lightning. But you could also say, again, morning, and then it's saying that the wind supposedly is going to calm down in the afternoon. So if you're going to do anything like that, I think the AM PM flight could be pretty interesting. So something to think about. But yeah, just keep an eye, especially if you play Showdown. That's where you want to pull up. All right, let's jump back, summarize, and get you guys out of here. Okay, so my top 5 cheapie plays, 7,300 and below. Number 1, Ryan Moore leads this field in stroke gain over the last 5 tournaments. So loves this course. So definitely if you're going with that horses for courses, the kind of strategic plotter guys, he's your man. You got Hammer and Hank Laboda had a nice showing here last year. Not a bad showing at the Travelers, so maybe he's coming back in a little bit of form. So I like Hammer and Hank. You got Chad Ramey, who's had, of course, had his win at Corrales. He's had a mixed bag of miscut or top 25s. But I think his game could fit here. Just kind of interesting play for me. You got Nate Lashley from a birdie perspective, has been playing good golf, making a bunch of birdies. Again, if you're down in this price range, I think he could be an interesting play. And last but not least, Mr. Silky Smooth, swinging Vaughn Taylor, again, had good showings here. And this course fits him. He just hits fairways, hits greens, and can make putts. So that'd be my top 5 recommendations if you are down below 7,300, and that's who I'm going to be going with. All right, real quick from a one and done, and I've already mentioned this. There's Ryan Moore right there. I mentioned he has a T2, a T18, a win back in 2016. He's gained 31 strokes total on this course against the field when he plays. And, then if you look at the guys like the Scott Browns, you got Lucas Johnson. And I mean, Glover, I'd say, is one of the better ball strikers, but terrible putter. Patrick Rogers, pretty good ball striker, got really good length. I put CH3, even though he's got a little more length, but I kind of feel like he's a plotter for me. Chris Straw, which is crazy. I think that guy is ranked like 2000th, and I just don't even know how he's in the field. I really don't. There's my Silky Smooth Vaughn Taylor, the guy that I'm putting a nice bet on. I hope he wins. Shank. You got Stalin, Johnson, Wagner, Landry, Berger, who's not in the field, and Patty Kazire. And with all that said, the guys that I'm looking at, I'm just going to bring them all up. As already mentioned, Webb, you got Hadwin, probably, from I guess you could say the best talent in the field. You got Jahan, Shank, and more. So it's kind of an odd one. I think you can plug in, you're not going to waste. Well, there's no one that you could waste. I mentioned this yesterday. You can't even worry about wasting a good guy here. So hopefully you can just pick the unique guy, especially if you're deep down and, So anyways, That's the guys that I'm looking at from a one and done perspective. And with that said, that is all my shows wrapped up you for the John Deere. Side note, I will be on vacation next week. I don't know if I'm going to put a show out or shows for what the Scottish. We'll see. Like I said, we've got a rough patch coming up here. We got the alternative or alternate events. You got what the Barracuda, the Barbasol. We've got the Open. So I mean, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I mean, just don't get too nervous if you guys don't hear from me for a reason for the next week or two. But I'll try to put something out for you guys. But if I'm going to take a break, this will be the time to do it. And as always, with that said, click that like button, share it with anybody else, subscribe, and if I always mention, I haven't been stating it, if I can help you with anything, any questions that you have or interest of who you're playing, or any opinions, hit me up on YouTube comments. I watch those, or on Twitter at DFS Golf Guru. And with that said, let's go out. Let's win some money again. For me, I'm most excited from the betting side. I hope we get a nice long shot, even if I don't even hit it. I hope we get a nice long shot payout. That'd be great. Out of everything for the John Deere, that's what I want. I want that 300 to 1 to win this thing. So we'll see how that works. All right, guys. Best of luck to you. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the golf. And I'm pretty sure I'll put out at least a show. I just don't know what Fantasy National is going to have available. It is a PGA sanctioned event, so I should have some stuff. So we'll see. At worst case, I'll put out a show and try to do it all in one or something like that. All right, guys. Take care. Talk to you later.